All right, we begin with a Fox News alert. The president's son, Hunter Biden, has been indicted. This happened late last night on 9 tax-related charges. 3 of them are felonies brought by special counsel David Weiss. Yesterday, this came through. Meanwhile, Weiss, quote, said this: the defendant spent his money on drugs, escorts and girlfriends, luxury hotels, rental properties, exotic cars, clothing, and other items of personal nature. In short, everything but his taxes. Hunter's accused of avoiding paying $1.4 million in taxes over a 4-year period. Here's what former Speaker Newt Gingrich had to say last night.
I think at a practical level, when you look at all the information, what you have is essentially what I called in a recent newsletter the Delaware Sopranos. This is a crime family. They were willing to sell out the interest of the United States. As somebody said the other day, you now have, in effect, a Chinese-Russian paid agent sitting in the Oval Office.
Hunter faces up to 17 years in prison on those charges. And guys, remember, for the longest time, we heard the IRS whistleblower say we wanted to bring this in California, and David Weiss said no. We wanted to bring it in D.C. David Weiss said no, and then they asked David Weiss, he's like, no, I don't think that really happened. Now he gets a special prosecutor status, and it seems like it happened. And I get the sense it's not over, but in the big picture, Abbe Lowell has fired back his attorney, an attorney somebody else is paying. Evidently, he is broke. He does not have a job. And then they're going to paint it as it's a Hunter problem, not a Joe problem. But as we analyze this, this is very much a Joe problem.
Oh, yeah, it is. And I think they're building the case of the connection with Joe Biden just because they said, look, he's struggling with alcohol, drugs, and all of this. But they also said he was a great businessman, and that's in the indictment.
Smartest man Joe knew.
Exactly. Matt Whitaker is the former acting attorney general. He's joining us now this morning. So, Matt, I'm reading the indictment. If you go to page 34, it goes through all of his business expenses. But they really aren't business expenses. This is him paying the prosecution and all of this. But they did something different in this indictment. They go through his book. And his memoir, and this is what he said in his memoir. The thieves, junkies, petty dealers, over-the-hill strippers, con artists, and assorted hanger-ons, who then invited their friends and associates in most recent hookups. They latched onto me and didn't go, all with my approval. I never slept. There was no clock. Day bled into night, and night into day. Beautiful things by Hunter Biden via the court. So he's talking about his addiction in the book while still saying he was a businessman. And so he has all these accounts that he's charged for all of these things, claiming them to be business expenses. And the court is saying, the prosecution said, that's not true. He was living a lavish lifestyle. He said it in his book. He has contempt for the court.
Yeah, and it's good to be with you all. You know, if you read through this indictment, I think David Weiss tries to cover himself because, remember, Weiss is the same person that tried to, give him a deferred agreement on the gun and do a misdemeanor tax charge. And this is at least 6 felonies. You have tax evasion, you have filing false tax returns, and you have a failure to file. And remember, the thing, Lawrence, that is so frustrating about this is the 2 most prosperous years for Hunter Biden, 2014 and 2015, were allowed to expire under the statute of limitations. Yep. And so, this to me really seems like David Weiss has found religion to some extent and decided to just hammer him with charges, but these are the appropriate charges because these tax years, Hunter was just willing to spend all his money, not pay anything in taxes, and not even file a tax return up until 2020 when his friend in California decided, well, your dad's running for president, so we better get all these taxes cleaned up, and you better pay these taxes. I mean, it's the story couldn't be worse for Hunter, but the way he did it also can't just be explained away as something to do with his addiction. This is someone that just chose not to pay his taxes. And when he finally did file tax returns, he filed false tax returns with all those expenses you described.
Matt, what does this mean for the president? And what do you think will happen to Hunter Biden going forward? Because he could spend 17 years behind bars.
Yeah, I think it's there's two sides of this coin for the president. Obviously, his son has done some very bad things with the influence peddling, not paying his taxes. But ultimately, what's happening in the House is the more interesting thing with this same money is how much of it ended up in Joe Biden's pocket, how much of it ended up in other family members' pockets. And, I think if you go back to the one message that Hunter Biden sent to his own daughter, where he said, he had to give 50% of his money to his father, Joe Biden. I think that's a very interesting issue that ultimately I think Jim Comer and others in the House are going to have to get to the bottom of.
It's interesting, Matt. This is what Eric Holder had to say. He was Attorney General under President Obama. Yeah. He was his wingman. He said this he said, I asked the Republicans and Democrats, would you have brought these charges against Hunter? And he said this. In fact, let's listen.
I've spoken to former colleagues, both Republican and Democrat, who were United States attorneys, and I asked them, you had these facts in your office, would you have brought this case? And the answer to a person was no. This is not a case that we would have brought, that there would have been some kind of resolution along the lines that was suggested in the possible plea agreement. The Justice Department, by and large, and there have been exceptions, is really an institution that is anti-political, that is politically neutral, that really just follows the facts and the law and makes determinations on that basis.
He was never neutral.
Unbelievable.
He was never neutral. Your thoughts about that? Did he call you? You were Attorney General.
No, and this is the thing about Attorney General Holder is, he is a partisan, he is a Democrat, and he will always bend the facts to, his partisan will, and he's trying to cover for Joe Biden. I was a U.S. attorney. I did it for 5.5 years. We brought tax charges. Typically, if somebody ultimately paid those taxes, it makes the case a little less attractive to bring. But what doesn't change in this case, it's the tax evasion, but it's also the filing the false tax return. If he hadn't just filed his taxes and then cleaned it up later, I don't think you would have a case. But it is the false tax returns. That's lying to the government. That's hiding your income. It's it's making essentially every other taxpayer to your the truckers that you had on earlier. They're paying for the cost of government instead of Hunter Biden, who should have been paying his fair share. And the other thing that just is a little nuance in this case is these tax returns were originally filed in his child support case down in Arkansas. Yeah. And you remember where he pled poverty, and these tax returns were used as the basis for that, but they had all these disallowed and illegal expenses. So this whole thing, I think, is even worse than it appears at first blush.
Matt, he claimed that he was traveling all over the world to do business. And in fact, he claimed $388,000 in business-related travel. But the court says despite having done little to no business in that year, and that's 2018, at the height of his addiction.
Yeah, I think that's why he has been indicted, and inconsistent with what Attorney General Holder would suggest. These are serious allegations, and if you expense all your personal expenses as business expenses, obviously those are cases that U.S. attorneys' offices bring all the time. And the biggest hang-up in this entire case was the Department of Justice Tax Division, which appeared to be blocking it, and their political appointee runs that division. And my sense is that has been one of the problems in this case the whole time. And so when the whistleblowers talked about how Maine Justice was potentially blocking this case and how U.S. Attorney Weiss was complaining about that, that's probably what was the jam up at DOJ, was the tax division preventing these charges from actually happening.
I think, when you read this, it's just unbelievable that someone could spend this much money over the course of 3 years. I mean, I know a lot of people do salacious and gross and dangerous things, but he spent, the women, $680,000. Adult entertainment, I'm not sure what the difference is. Maybe one's prostitute and one's
more of a dancer,
strippers or porn.
Or maybe she has a singer.
Adult entertainment, almost $200,000. I mean, what came to mind when you read this article or all of these headlines last night, Matt?
Yeah, well, what came to mind is, one is that Hunter Biden, used his position as the son of the vice president, and now who he's son of the president, to line his pockets and then not pay his taxes. And I think that, to me, is a fundamental part of being a citizen in the United States of America, is we all pay our fair share, and we all, we deduct our legitimate expenses. And he tried to game the system, and that's not the way it should work, and he should be punished for that.
Matt, we're not psychologists, although I should have one on retainer. But think about this. He got away with the laptop. His dad's president of the United States, and he decides to write a book almost provoking this type of investigation, arrogantly saying, I dare you, and then go on a book tour where even Jimmy Kimmel had to ask him a real question, have you thought about AppleCare? Instead, and everyone's laughing about it. But he put it out there again. It's like, I dare you to do
He almost
this.
got away
I
with the
dare
gun
you to
charges,
indict me.
too.
Yes.
Subpoena Donald Trump. You're right. I mean,
Like the arrogance.
Exactly.
You would think he wouldn't just like, keep that. Don't put me on camera. Leave me in the back shed. Don't ever bring up my name again. I'm just hoping to fade away.
I'm not going to write a book about
this. Yeah, I won't. But I'm going to write a book about it, take my shirt off, and do a book tour.
Right.
Right. And you don't hang a lantern on it, to your point, but remember the two worst tax years where he made the most income when his father was vice president were 2014 and 2015, and that was allowed to expire by the federal government, and those charges will never be brought.
All right, Matt Whitaker, talk to you again soon.
That just seems
right,
so unfair, because we were all paying
Christmas.
taxes in 14 and 15, and he gets away with it.
Right.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Let's hope we were. Because
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.